alone and reeling from the ultimate betrayal. My husband, Chad, and I had been married for 4 years, together for 7. We talked about kids, a vague someday, but never set a date. I was on birth control, but about 3 months ago, a nasty stomach bug and the antibiotics I took decided to mess with my cycle. I didn't think much of a missed period. Stress often threw me off. But then came the morning sickness, the tender breasts, and a knot of apprehension in my stomach. On my lunch break, I bought a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines.
Clear as day.
I took 3 more over the next 2 days. All positive. I was shocked, yes, and undeniably scared, but also excited. This wasn't planned, not in the slightest. But once the initial surprise wore off, I started picturing our future. A family. I've always dreamed of being a mom, and I truly believed Chad would come around once he got past the shock. I waited a week, carefully planning the perfect moment. No Instagram confetti, just his favorite lasagna and garlic bread, a bottle of his bourbon and sparkling cider for me. I even wore the blue dress he loved. This unplanned news deserved a special reveal. As I cooked, I rehearsed the words in my head. How do I tell him? I settled on something simple. Chad, after dinner, I have some news. It's going to change our lives. He came home later than usual, around 7. Distracted. Glued to his phone, which had become a worrying pattern lately, always about a big project with his team. He barely noticed the special dinner, just mumbled it looked good, and poured himself a generous glass of bourbon. All through dinner, he was quiet, answering my attempts at conversation with one-word grunts. Something felt off, but I blamed work stress. After we ate, I took a deep breath, reached for his hand across the table, and said the words I'd practiced, the words that would change everything. Chad, I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was deafening, stretching for an eternity. His face drained of color, then twisted into an expression I'd never seen before, a terrifying blend of anger and pure panic. He asked if I was joking. When I assured him I wasn't, that I'd taken 4 tests, everything spiraled. You ruined everything, he hissed, his voice laced with venom. I didn't want this child. I tried to explain the accident, the antibiotics, how we could figure it out like we always did. That's when he dropped the real bomb. Maybe he never wanted kids at all. He claimed he'd only gone along with my someday plans to keep me happy, that it was always hypothetical to him. My gut clenched. Is there someone else? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. His reaction told me everything before he even admitted it. Pressed, he finally confessed he'd been seeing Vanessa for a few months. Vanessa. His brilliant, fresh ideas-bringing, 24-year-old colleague. 7 years younger than me. While I was still processing this double betrayal, Chad started packing. Not an overnight bag, but a suitcase. I watched, numb with shock and disbelief, as my husband, the man I swore to spend forever with, literally packed his life to walk out on me, the same night I told him I was pregnant. When I asked where he was going, he just said, Vanessa's place for now. Within 30 minutes of my announcement, he was at the front door, suitcase in hand. Are you seriously doing this? I choked out. Walking out on your pregnant wife. His response was a pathetic mumble. I can't be a father. I'm not ready. I pointed out no one is ever truly ready, but life doesn't work that way. He just mumbled, I'm sorry, promised to call, and then he was gone.
Just like that.
I sat in our suddenly too quiet apartment, trying to make sense of what had happened. 1 minute, I was announcing our future. The next, my husband was gone, off to his younger girlfriend, leaving me and our unborn child behind. I called my best friend, Julie, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me. She came over immediately, holding me as I cried. I thought I knew him. How could I have been so wrong? The next morning, I woke on the couch, a wave of nausea hitting me. It wasn't a nightmare. My husband was gone, and I was still very much pregnant. Julie made me toast, reminding me to eat for the baby. My hand instinctively went to my stomach. Whatever Chad had decided, this was still my child. I tried calling Chad, but it went straight to voicemail. My texts went unanswered. By afternoon, anger started replacing the shock. I called my OBGYN. I was moving forward, with or without him. That evening, Chad's mother, Rebecca, called. Her words were brief, cold, and cutting. Chad had explained the situation. I should give him time. He was too young for a family. He was 31. Then came the real kicker. She hinted I should consider my options, a thinly veiled suggestion of termination. I firmly told her I was keeping her grandchild. The call ended with me shaking, finally understanding where Chad's coddled, self-centered attitude came from. The next few weeks were a blur of tears, fury, and fierce determination. I went to work, pretending my world hadn't imploded. I contacted a lawyer, researched single motherhood, calculated finances. I was going to make this work. Chad finally texted 3 days after leaving, not to apologize, but to say he was staying at Vanessa's and would send money for bills. When I insisted we talk, he said he needed space. A week passed, then 2. He came by once while I was out to get more things, leaving his keys on the counter with a note about paying rent and contacting me about divorce. Divorce, just like that. My first prenatal appointment was alone. When the technician did the ultrasound and I heard that fast, rhythmic whooshing of my baby's heartbeat for the first time, I broke down. Tears of grief for the family I thought we'd be, not just joy. I put the tiny, bean-shaped printout on the fridge, reminder that this little person was counting on me. 3 weeks after Chad left, his father, Roland, called. He was smoother than Rebecca, at least asking how I was. When I told him the truth, abandoned for a younger woman, his wife suggesting abortion, he tried to smooth it over, claiming Rebecca didn't mean it, that they were worried about Chad's career. He called my pregnancy unfortunate timing and explained Chad just isn't in a place to be a father. I reminded him I hadn't planned to be a single mother either, but adults deal with life's unexpected challenges. He offered financial help but made it clear Chad needed to focus on his career and that he and Vanessa had a connection. After hanging up, a profound clarity settled over me. I was utterly alone in this. Chad had chosen Vanessa. His parents had chosen him.
It was just me and my baby now.
But this realization wasn't crushing. It was strangely freeing. I didn't have to wonder anymore, didn't have to hope he'd come around. I could start planning our life without the weight of uncertainty. I called Julie that night and told her I needed to move. Too many memories here. She immediately offered her place. Looking around the apartment we'd shared, I felt a tiny flicker of hope, not for reconciliation, but for my future, my baby's future. It would be hard, I knew. Single motherhood, divorce, rebuilding from scratch. But one thing I knew for certain, my child would never feel unwanted, not by me. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. I met with my lawyer again. Chad thinks he can just walk away? We'll see about that. I might be down right now, but I am not out. Not even close. Midway subscribe line. And if you're finding strength in my story, or just want to see what unbelievable twists came next, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every comment and share helps me keep sharing these deeply personal journeys. First update. 1 year later, Tiago's first year and Chad's continued absence. Wow, I can't believe it's been a year since my last post. First, thank you to everyone who commented with advice and support. Your words meant more than you know during those dark days. So much has happened, and yet, somehow, writing that sentence feels like an understatement. I have a son now, an actual tiny human who depends on me for everything. His name is Tiago. He's 8 months old, and despite everything, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Yesterday, while folding his impossibly small socks, a thought stopped me in my tracks. Chad has never met him. Not once. Not when he was born, not for his first smile, not for his first Christmas. Never. My son's father lives less than 30 minutes away, and he's a complete stranger to his own child. The divorce was finalized when I was 7 months pregnant. Chad didn't contest anything, which my lawyer said was unusual, but made everything move faster. The judge ordered reasonable child support, which is something, though it's been spotty. I moved into a smaller 2-bedroom place closer to Julie. My dining room is now half nursery, overflowing with baby gear. Marie Kondo would have a heart attack. Tiago was born on a Tuesday night after 19 hours of labor. Julie was my rock, holding my hand while I swore I couldn't do it. Those first weeks were a blur of sleeplessness, nipple pain, TMI, I know, and wondering if I was doing anything right. The night we came home, Tiago wouldn't stop crying, and I remember sitting on my bathroom floor at 3 a.m., also crying, Googling, "Why won't baby sleep?" while he wailed in my arms. I'd never felt so alone or so overwhelmed. But we survived. Day by day, we figured it out. I learned his cries. Hungry sounds different from tired, which sounds different from, I just want to be held. He loves being sung to, even though I can't carry a tune. He's observant, stubborn, and has a laugh that lights up my entire world. Work has been complicated. I went back when Tiago was 10 weeks old because I desperately needed the money. My boss, Anastasia, has been surprisingly understanding. Childcare nearly broke me financially and emotionally. Daycare costs more than my rent. The financial instability has been one of the hardest parts. Child support from Chad comes sometimes, but there's always an excuse. Car repairs, unexpected expenses, I'm switching jobs. Last month, it was 2 weeks late because he and Vanessa were in Spain. I saw the pictures on Instagram before he even bothered to respond to my texts about the missing payment. Speaking of social media, I made the mistake of checking his profiles a few months after Tiago was born. There they were, Chad and Vanessa, looking sun-kissed and carefree at some rooftop bar. No sleepless nights or spit-up stains in their world. I blocked them both. Julie says it's better for my mental health, and she's right. Julie has been my lifeline. She comes over with takeout, holds Tiago so I can shower, and never complains when I can only talk about baby poop or sleep regressions. She even organized a small baby shower when Chad's friends all ghosted me. Funny how people pick sides so quickly. Chad's parents have been interesting. After initially supporting their son abandoning his pregnant wife, they had a change of heart once Tiago was actually born. Rebecca texted a month after he arrived, asking to see their grandson. I didn't respond right away. Then came flowers, baby clothes, a handwritten letter about wanting to be part of his life. I finally agreed to a short visit when Tiago was 4 months old. It was awkward, to say the least. Rebecca kept commenting on how much he looked like Chad as a baby, while Roland took 50 photos. They brought expensive gifts and talked about a college fund. Not once did they mention Chad's absence or apologize for their previous behavior. When they asked to take him for an overnight stay, I drew a hard line. No way was I letting my infant go anywhere without me, especially with people who had basically suggested I terminate my pregnancy a year earlier. That conversation didn't go well. Rebecca accused me of using Tiago to punish Chad. Punish Chad? He'd shown zero interest in his son. That's the part one still can't wrap my head around. How do you know you have a child and just not care? Not wonder what they look like, how they're growing, if they're happy? Chad has sent money sometimes, but has never once asked for a photo, a video, or a visit. It's like Tiago is an abstract concept to him, not a real person with his eyes and dimpled chin. I've tried to be the bigger person. When Tiago was born, I sent a simple text with his birth stats and a photo. No response. I set up a shared photo album online, just in case Chad ever wanted to see what he was missing. As far as I can tell, he's never opened it. For Tiago's first Christmas, I sent a holiday card with his photo to Chad's address. It came back, returned to sender. Meanwhile, life goes on. Tiago started daycare, caught every possible virus in his first month there, another fun surprise of parenthood no one warns you about, and has since developed an immune system of steel. He's crawling now, pulling himself up, and putting everything in his mouth. My apartment is baby-proofed to the extreme. My daily routine is a carefully choreographed dance of efficiency. It's relentless. The hardest moments are the ones no one talks about. Like when Tiago had his first fever at 3 a.m. and I had to decide alone whether to take him to the ER. Or when he says, "Mama," but there's no dada in his vocabulary because that person doesn't exist in his world. Or the daycare forms that ask for father's information, and I have to write "not applicable" while surrounded by other parents filling out both sections. But there are beautiful moments too. Morning cuddles when he wakes up happy and babbling. The way he reaches for me at daycare. His fascination with the ceiling fan. His absolute joy when splashing in the bath. The weight of him falling asleep on my chest, his breath warm against my neck. I'm not going to pretend it's easy. Being a single parent is the hardest thing I've ever done. There are days I'm so tired I put the milk in the cabinet and the cereal in the fridge. Days I cry in the shower because it's the only place Tiago can't hear me. But I'm doing it. We're doing it. And, strangely enough, I'm proud of that. Tiago's first birthday is coming up next month. Julie's helping me plan a small celebration. I debated inviting Chad's parents, but decided against it after our last interaction. They still occasionally text, asking to see him, but it's always on their terms, with no acknowledgement of how their son has abandoned his child. As for Chad himself, I'm not holding my breath. Last I heard through mutual friends, he and Vanessa moved in together and got a dog. I guess that's the level of responsibility he's comfortable with. The kicker came last week. I finally got approved for a modest apartment in a slightly better area. It's nothing fancy, but it has a small yard where Tiago can play, and the schools are good. As I was signing the lease, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Rebecca, saying they were having a family reunion next month and wanted to include their grandson. The text included a photo of Chad and Vanessa, arms around each other, looking perfectly happy. I stared at that photo for a long time. There was Chad, smiling, living his life as if his son doesn't exist. Something shifted in me in that moment. Not anger, exactly, though there's still plenty of that. More like clarity. I've spent a year waiting for Chad to step up, to show even the slightest interest in his child. A year sending updates into the void. A year trying to be fair and reasonable despite everything. I texted Rebecca back. Tiago won't be attending. If Chad wants to meet his son, he knows how to reach me. But I'm done making excuses for him or pretending he's anything but absent by choice. Then I blocked her number 2. Maybe that sounds harsh, but I'm done protecting Chad's image or his feelings. I'm done carrying the entire emotional load while he gets to live consequence-free. I'm done pretending for Tiago's sake that his father might suddenly become interested in his existence. The truth is, we're better off without someone who could so easily walk away. Tiago deserves people in his life who choose him, who show up for him, who love him unconditionally. I can't force Chad to be that person. So here we are 1 year later, a single mom and her son against the world. It's not the life I planned, not even close. But looking at Tiago's sleeping face tonight, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you end up with isn't the one you expected, but it's still perfect in its own way. I don't know what the future holds. A tiny part of me still can't believe he doesn't want to know his amazing son. For now, I'm focusing on what I can control. Building a stable home, creating happy memories, being both mom and dad as best I can. And maybe, just maybe, finding a way to trust again someday. But that's a problem for future Melissa. Present Melissa needs to finish the laundry and go to bed. Tiago will be up at 6 a.m., whether I'm ready or not. Second update 4 years later. Finding my own way. It's been 4 years since my last update. I honestly didn't think I'd be posting here again, but something happened yesterday that I can't stop thinking about. Tiago just turned 5 last month. 5. I still can't believe my little baby is now this chatty kindergartner who knows all the planets in order and corrects my pronunciation of dinosaur names. Time is wild. Yesterday was his first day of kindergarten. I took the morning off work to walk him in, expecting the usual chaos. What I wasn't expecting was to see Chad's friend Leroy in the school parking lot, dropping off his daughter. I froze, but Tiago was tugging my hand, so I pushed through. After getting Tiago settled, only minor tears from me, not him, I was heading back to my car when Leroy approached. I braced myself for awkwardness, but instead, he just asked how I was doing. We ended up getting coffee, and that's when he dropped the bomb. Chad and Vanessa broke up 6 months ago. Apparently, she wanted kids, and he, at 35, was still saying he wasn't ready. After stringing her along for years, she finally gave him an ultimatum, and he chose, well, not her. Chad's company downsized last year, and he's been struggling to find stable work, according to Leroy. He's been crashing on friends' couches while Vanessa keeps their apartment. The perfect life he abandoned us for has completely fallen apart. I sat there, stirring my coffee, not sure how to feel. There was no satisfaction, no serves him right moment like I might have imagined years ago. Just a strange emptiness, like hearing about a character from a TV show I stopped watching seasons ago. What struck me most was realizing how completely different my life is now compared to when Chad left. After years of juggling single motherhood and work, things have finally stabilized. I've been at the same company for 6 years now, and last year Anastasia promoted me to senior project manager. The raise meant I could finally afford to buy a small townhouse in a good school district. Nothing fancy, but it's ours, with Tiago's handprints painted on his bedroom wall and a little garden where we grow tomatoes that never quite turn out right. Financial stability was hard won. There were so many nights of spreadsheets and budget calculations. Child support from Chad eventually stopped completely around Tiago's 3rd birthday. After multiple missed payments, I filed with the enforcement agency, but Chad had changed jobs so many times it was like chasing a ghost. Eventually, I decided the stress of fighting for it wasn't worth it. I'd rather Tiago see me calm and present than anxious and angry over money we could manage without. The question I've been dreading started coming about a year ago. Why don't I have a daddy? Tiago asked, completely out of nowhere, while we were grocery shopping. I'd prepared for this moment, read articles about age-appropriate explanations, but nothing prepares you for looking into those innocent eyes. I told him a simplified version of the truth, that his daddy wasn't ready to be a parent, but that didn't mean anything was wrong with Tiago. That sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people, but I wanted and loved him enough for 2 parents. Those conversations never get easier. Each time Tiago notices another kid with their dad at the park, or sees father-son activities at school, my heart breaks a little. But we've built our own traditions. Julie is still his favorite aunt, and my parents drive up monthly to spend weekends with their grandson. We have our village. Then, about 10 months ago, something unexpected happened. At a parent-teacher night at Tiago's preschool, I kept noticing this dad with kind eyes and a terrible dad joke t-shirt. I'm not arguing. I'm just explaining why I'm right. His daughter, Emma, was in Tiago's class, and they'd become friends. I overheard him gently but firmly handling her meltdown over leaving the classroom toys, and something about his patience caught my attention.
Douglas,
Widowed father of Emma. Makes homemade pizza on Fridays with dinosaur-shaped pepperoni. Remembers Teacher Appreciation Week without reminders. Doesn't mind when my son talks endlessly about space. It started with playdates. The kids were friends anyway. Then coffee while they played. Then texting about school announcements we'd both missed. Then dinner one night after Emma and Tiago's soccer practice ran late. Then more dinners, more texts, more conversations that stretched late into the evening after the kids were asleep. Douglas never rushed anything. He understood the package deal, me and Tiago always. He asked thoughtful questions about Tiago's interests, brought him books about stars. The first time he fixed Tiago's wobbly bicycle seat without being asked, I nearly cried at the simple kindness of it. 6 months in, Douglas told me about losing Emma's mom to cancer when Emma was just a year old, how he'd been terrified of raising a daughter alone, how he'd kept her mom's photos everywhere so Emma would know her. The raw honesty of his grief and love made me trust him in a way I hadn't trusted anyone in years. We've been officially dating for 7 months now. The kids know we're special friends and seem genuinely happy about our blended playdates. Last month, Douglas and I had the talk about where this is going. Nothing dramatic, just sitting on my back porch, talking honestly about our hopes and fears. He wants to move forward together.
So do I.
We're taking it slow, but for the first time in 5 years, I'm allowing myself to picture a future with someone again. Meanwhile, Chad's parents have suddenly renewed their interest in Tiago. After years of sporadic texts and occasional gift cards, Rebecca called last month, asking if they could take him for a weekend. When I explained that wasn't going to happen after years of minimal contact, she got defensive, claiming they'd always wanted a relationship but thought I was keeping them away. The truth is, they made barely any effort until recently. I wonder if Chad moving back in with them has anything to do with their sudden interest. Douglas asked last week if he could take Tiago fishing along with Emma next weekend. Something so simple, yet it made my throat tight, watching Tiago's excitement about learning to fish like real boys do. After Leroy's revelation yesterday, I checked Chad's Instagram for the first time in years. His carefully curated feed of exotic vacations and rooftop parties has been replaced with vague inspirational quotes about new beginnings and finding yourself. No mention of the sun turning 5 just miles away. I closed the app, feeling oddly at peace. 5 years ago, I was broken, terrified, and alone. Today, I have a career I'm proud of, a home I own, an amazing kid who astonishes me daily, and a partner who chooses us every day. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Third update, the prodigal father's return. Last Saturday started like any other. Pancake breakfast, then rushing to Tiago's soccer game. Douglas and I were huddled under an umbrella, watching the blue lightning, when Douglas nudged me. "Is that someone you know?" Across the fields stood Chad. After years of complete absence, my ex-husband was just watching our son play soccer. No warning, no heads-up text, nothing. When halftime came, Tiago ran over for water, excited about his defensive play. That's when I noticed Chad approaching. Tiago spotted him too, asking who the stranger was. Before I could answer, Chad was standing there awkwardly, commenting on how big Tiago had gotten. I sent Tiago back to his team and confronted Chad. He admitted his mother had mentioned the soccer schedule. Of course. Rebecca. The sudden increase in contact from his parents made sense now. Douglas introduced himself, and I noticed Chad flinched slightly when I claimed the title of Tiago's father for him. Biologically only, I corrected him. After some tense words, Chad asked if we could talk after the game. I reluctantly agreed to 20 minutes at a nearby coffee shop. Douglas took Tiago and Emma for Victory ice cream while I met with Chad. He'd ordered me a cappuccino, not knowing I'd switched to lattes years ago, a small detail that somehow highlighted how much had changed. Chad's story came in pieces. Therapy for a year, 8 months sober, moving back in with his parents after breaking up with Vanessa. The most stunning admission was that he'd actually asked his parents to limit contact with Tiago because he couldn't handle the reminder of what he'd abandoned. Now, he wanted to make things right. He wanted to know his son. I told him plainly that Tiago wasn't the baby he walked out on, but a person with feelings and a life Chad knew nothing about. He acknowledged he couldn't just walk in and be dad, then asked about my relationship with Douglas. Something like pain crossed his face when I told him Douglas had been more of a father than he ever was. I agreed to consider a supervised meeting with strict conditions. I would be present, it would be brief, and if he disappeared again, that was it. Forever. 3 days later, after talking with Douglas and our family therapist, I arranged a meeting at a park. Telling Tiago was harder than expected. His questions were heartbreaking. Why his father wanted to see him now, whether Douglas would come too, and if his biological father would like him. He decided to wear his soccer jersey, so he knows I'm good at soccer. The meeting wasn't terrible. Chad brought a Lego soccer field set, and they built it together while I watched from nearby. I noticed genetic similarities I'd forgotten. The same concentration face, the same eye crinkle when they smiled. Over the next 2 weeks, we had several similar supervised meetings. Then Chad called, asking to take Tiago to a movie alone. I refused immediately. 3 weeks versus 7 years? Not happening. He seemed to accept this, suggesting we all 3 go instead. Before I could respond, he showed up at our house with his parents unannounced. Roland and Rebecca pushed forward with talk about moving forward as a family, while Chad mumbled that he told them this wasn't the way. I sent them home, but Chad asked to speak with me alone. That's when he dropped it. "I still love you, Melissa." I never stopped. The audacity was breathtaking. He suggested that, despite my relationship with Douglas, we should consider reuniting as Tiago's real parents, because our son deserved that chance. I asked him to leave, saying I needed to think. When Douglas came downstairs, I told him about Chad's declaration. Douglas couldn't hide his concern, but I reassured him I was exactly where I wanted to be. Later that night, Chad texted that he meant what he said about wanting another chance with our family. I stared at those words, feeling an odd mix of anger and pity. The man who walked out when I needed him most wasn't someone I could ever trust again. Tomorrow, I'll call Chad to set clear boundaries about his role in Tiago's life. As a biological father only, not as my partner. Some bridges, once burned, stay ash. And Chad? His choices led him exactly where his choices would naturally lead. I can't even find it in me to be bitter anymore. That part of my life feels like a different timeline, one I stepped out of long ago. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm focusing on what I can control. Building a stable home, creating happy memories, being both mom and dad as best I can. And maybe, just maybe, finding a way to trust again someday. But that's a problem for future Melissa. If you've ever had to pick up the pieces and build a new life from scratch, or if you've ever had to stand firm against someone trying to rewrite history, tell me in the comments below. What would you have done? I truly want to know.